Good evening once again. It's time for another round of sound. This is the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. I'm your host, Josh Taylor. Bob Pompiani has a well-deserved weekend off, but the hottest talk show on TV with sports talk does not stop, and there's plenty to discuss. Pirates have a chance to sweep the Twins, but it falls short today at PNC Park. Steelers OTAs wraps up. Minicamp is on the way, and training camp just not too far down in the windshield. We'll discuss that as well. And to help me do that, our panel this evening only got 2 men, but this time we'll still get it done.
Two's all you need, John.
That's right.
All you need.
Two's all we need.
We're good. I like it.
Jason Mackey from the Post-Gazette, Will Graves from the Associated Press. Guys, let's start with the Pirates today. They had a chance to sweep Minnesota, really golden opportunity. If they would have swept Minnesota today, it would have been 7 of their last 10. Granted, they still got 3 straight series wins at home, beating the Dodgers, beating the Braves, and beating the Twins, so that's pretty impressive. But it felt like a golden opportunity was missed. A couple of things didn't go their way. Jarrett Jones didn't have his sharpest stuff earlier in the game, but he managed to figure it out and get through 5 innings. A couple really tricky plays in left field with Connor Joe that fell in for hits. There was the foul play, the foul call that was not called and became a pass ball. That hurt them, but a lot of things didn't go Jarrett Jones' way. I guess the first question I ask you, Jason, what did you make of what happened today and how Jarrett Jones was able to at least stem the tide and at least survive all the things that didn't go his way?
Yeah, Josh, he continues to impress me, and he continues to impress me not by the electric stuff. We know that's going to be there, not by the slider. It's nasty, great. Sometimes you're not going to have your best stuff, and I was really curious to see how this outing was going to go for Jarrett Jones. He's done an excellent job of this when he's not had his best weapons, still giving them a chance to win. And they had a chance to win this game the entire way until it got into the 10th inning and things got really ugly. But if you're going to ask me just about Jarrett Jones, he showed maturity. I really like, again, we keep going over these same topics, but for good reason. Paul Skeens, Mitch Keller, they're giving them chances to win baseball games, allowing the offense to score runs. It's hard to believe he and Paul are just 22.
I mean, I was going to say big picture. I think if we had said, you know, at the start of the week, you're going to get 4 out of 6 at home, and you think, well, maybe we get 1 of 3 from the Dodgers, maybe, and then maybe we sweep the Twins. But the Twins look a pretty good year, and obviously the Dodgers are the Dodgers. I was there, you know, for Skeens and Ohtani on what was that, Wednesday?
Wednesday.
Like, you know, electric stuff. Today, the only thing that like really stood out to me, and I want to be very clear, I was shopping with my daughter for her 13th birthday. Shout out Kat Graves. I was not at the ballpark today, but like on Wednesday night, when they have that big inning against the Dodgers, they have Jack Sawinski bunt with first and second, no outs, and a run already in.
Yep.
Today, Triolo comes up, squares around once, doesn't get it down. And then he's swinging away.
Took a strike in the first one.
Right. I mean, like, I am just sort of like baffled at the, you know, I'm just looking for a through line on like the methodology, because this is the way they, and because I even asked very pointedly Shelty on Thursday about having Sawinski bunt, because that's a guy who's like, who profiles as a home run hitter. He's like, look, we have to manufacture runs. This is we were not hitting the ball a lot, which, you know, Sherrington talked to me and Jason and some others about yesterday. You know,
which is a fair way of looking at it.
Right.
Not even criticizing the Sawinski move.
You've got to get a bunt down in that situation. Like today, like that to me is where the real opportunity to, because like, and look, if he gets it down, there's no guarantee that the next 2 at-bats are the same, where there's a fly out and a sac fly or whatever. Like, but to me, that was just, it was a missed opportunity. But I think if you zoom out, the way I look at it is if you zoom out, 4 out of 6. And playing pretty good ball, and they got 3 pitchers that, you know, are going to give you, I mean, they're high-end starters now, right? So, and not a lot of teams have that. So if I zoom out, that's good, but when things are this tight, it's, you know, like in September, October, you're going to be like, man, that's one we could have had.
It doesn't tell me anything that I didn't already know about this team.
That's fair.
It didn't. That the bullpen is not deep enough. They've got some good things that are intriguing. They did some things today that were commendable. We'll talk about Rowdy Tellez. Maybe he's become something. I don't know. They've got some other parts to their game that we saw over various parts of the homestand. O'Neal Cruz and some of the mammoth home runs he hit would be part of it. They have actually scored a decent amount of runs. They came into this one, I think, since Skeens made his debut, 6th in MLB in runs scored, maybe
a little bit more than 5 per.
Yeah. But in the back end of the bullpen has actually been pretty good. Bednar, Holderman, Chapman, they've steadied. Beyond that, it worries me a little bit. And when you have Ortiz down, Majinski, I believe, was down after throwing 1 2/3 in the bullpen game. They just don't have enough arms there where you bring a Ben Heller in the 10th inning. He should not be in that situation. But where else do you want Derek Shelton to go? Everybody's been used up. There's no magic pitcher sitting out.
I mean, go ahead. Clint Hurdle used to say, you know, you can only win the game in front of you, right? And so like that yesterday, the plan to win yesterday's game was not to try to win the game and give us a better chance on Sunday. It was like, we just got to win this game. You throw 6 guys at it in 4 out of 5 days for Holderman, 4 out of 5 days for Bednar. Luis, shoved for 4 1/3. They were limited, but the thought
Four
process,
guys were down.
The thought
today.
process was, I mean, if Jared Jones has like a smoother first inning than he has today, look, we can't expect this guy to be perfect. To Jason's point, it is hard sometimes when you think what's happened in the first 2 months of the season. These guys, one guy's been 22 for a little bit, and the other guy's been 22 for a week, right? I mean, these guys are still super, super young. But in theory, you're thinking, God, if Jared could have given you 6 today, maybe a little more. If he could have been a little more efficient early on, maybe things unfold a little bit differently. But this is, when you use 6 guys to get a win on Saturday and the bullpen's not what it's supposed to be on Sunday, it's hard for me to kind of get really too worked up about it. That being said, for Ben Heller, I mean, look, I was listening.
Be glad you were shopping during that experience.
I was listening to Brownie on the way home from.
I would have shopped for darn near anybody in the Pittsburgh area as opposed to watching that.
It's like I tweeted this out today. It was like, it's that old Chris Rock skit, here today, gone today, right? Like
grand opening, grand closing.
Right, but then like the flip side, but after about 10 minutes, it got painful.
Yeah.
And this is a guy who's been a major leaguer. He's been around, and for him to endure that. And he faced he talked afterwards, which let's be honest, that does, and Jason and I knows this as well as anybody. Not everybody does when they have bad days at work at the ballpark. Okay, so a lot of respect to him. That was tough, and I just don't know. I mean, I assume he's not going to be on the roster on Tuesday.
First Pirate pitcher, and they mentioned this during the broadcast. First Pirate pitcher with 3 hit batters in an inning since Doc Ellis. And that was an entirely different situation because if you know the story, you know.
Ben Heller was on LSD or not.
Ben Heller was no Doc Ellis because we know why Doc Ellis did it. He did it on purpose. And if you don't know the story, just Google Doc Ellis, Cincinnati Reds, three hit batsmen, you'll probably find it. But that situation in and of itself is just completely, isolated from it. But that kind of illustrates and underscores just how much things went wrong in that inning. But here's what we'll do. We will take a break. When we come back, we got to talk about Rowdy Tellez. We got to talk about his resurgence since that trip to Toronto. He's taken a big leap since then, and it showed up during this weekend series. Is he back yet, or is it maybe just a flame out? We'll talk about that. Plus, Mitch Keller continues his role. Is he in that position to where the Pirates can build that rotation around him and the pitching staff? What else do they need going into the playoffs? We'll talk about all that stuff and more when we come back. Stick around. Welcome back to the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. Josh Taylor in for Bob Pompiani. We've been talking about Pirates earlier in this show with Will Graves and Jason Mackey. Let's talk about Rowdy Tellez. He had this huge weekend for the Pirates. He's 10 for 21 since that road trip to Toronto, 4 extra base hits. He's risen his batting average about 40-some-odd points during that span. And he talked about how he's just really, first of all, he took ownership of what was happening with him and made some changes. We're seeing that pay off. Jason, you and I talked about this last night during the Ireland Contracting nightly sports call. But I want to talk about this again because he went and did what he did again today, 2 for 3. Yeah. And you said you didn't think it was just an aberration. Do you still feel that way with what we're seeing today?
I do. And I think Rowdy is in a completely different spot, a better spot. I gained more insight into that after today's game. Had a good chat with Rowdy Tellez about some of the stuff that's sort of driving him. That'll be a column in the Post-Gazette on Monday. But, it got pretty deep for Rowdy. He was calling a childhood coach, guy that he considers a father figure, and, looking in the mirror. And he said, we needed to take it all the way back, take a bus back, take a flight back. Like, he was really going in hard. But, I mean, he has really clean slated this. It was not physical with him. It is very much mental. And right now, I believe that his physical abilities are there. They're now playing because his head is clear. You saw the event at PNC Park on Saturday. Will was talking about this, getting booed and then getting celebrated the same night. I think that meant a lot for Rowdy. And you see what he did today. He's in a very good place mentally.
I mean, we were talking a little while ago about Heller being accountable. I remember very vividly, it was maybe his last homestand. Fans were killing him, Jason and a couple other guys. He went and talked that night. I was off talking to somebody else.
Rowdy answered every question.
And, yesterday, Jason says literally within 45 seconds to a minute and a half, they went from booing him to him getting the standing ovation. I think part of this is, and, it was that way from the day he was introduced to us after they signed him. We're on the Zoom call, and he's like, I just can't wait to get to Pittsburgh. And if there is a Pittsburgh guy on this team that's not, we'll take Kutch out of the equation, you got a dude that looks like he runs a 40 in about 10 seconds. You know, his hairline is what it is at 29. He looks like he wants to hit tanks and drink beer, right? You know, and have a good time. And I think that would fed into some of the frustration because the fans want to love this guy, and he is a charismatic guy. I mean, he's a guy that Jason and I, look, we love quote machines, right? I mean, like that's all we were
good for business.
Be honest, and he's
how we keep it moving, right?
And it's authentic. And to see the reaction of his teammates, which I consider to be maybe even more genuine than what you get from the fans who are just sort of happy this guy finally did something. Do I think he's turned around? I mean, there was nowhere to go but up to be very clear, but.
Way to be negative about this.
he was hitting 175 before they went on the road trip. So.
Look, a little bit of offense from that position would go a long way to sort of, there's a big glob of teams that we were talking to Ben Sherrington about it yesterday that it's in that middle. There's about 4 or 5 good teams, 4 or 5 bad teams, and there's just a ton in the middle there. And the Pirates are in that group, and they certainly have some of the pieces to separate themselves. And if he could be a 250 guy with 15 to 20 homers at the end of the season, that's for $3 million, that's fine.
And that's probably what they wanted going in. I think that's fair to assume.
Yeah, and this is multifaceted too, because Connor Joe's been very good. And how that relates to Rowdy Tellez, if Rowdy Tellez can handle first base, Connor Joe can go out in the outfield and play regularly. And the Pirates have gotten poor production from their outfielders. So you add Connor Joe in there, you add Rowdy Tellez, you've got 2 things now clicking. And to me, if the Pirates can figure out the bullpen, just a little bit more depth. Maybe the trade deadline has something to do with that. The starting rotation is in a very good spot. You score more runs, which is going to be impacted by Connor Joe, Rowdy Tellez, O'Neal Cruz, Ke'Bryan Hayes, a bunch of different factors. But Rowdy Tellez is doing his part. Connor Joe has done his part. And all of a sudden, when you hear baseball people say lengthen the lineup, that's lengthening the lineup, having production from more spots.
Now, with that said, we're talking about the possibility of adding to this team. Let's get to the other side of that ledger because you have to figure out who you're going to send out in order to determine who you're going to bring in. So, Will, I ask you this question. You look up and down. Let's say you look at your GM board with all the names on the tiles on the wall. Which of those names on the tiles is untouchable? Which guys aren't you willing to move? And which guys might be more attractive to get the piece back that you want to get?
That's a tough question, Josh, because they're not in a position where they're so loaded with prospects that they could. But I mean, Jason and I yesterday, we were trying to get straight answers from Ben, and look, he's gotten very adept at this. I asked him very point blank, are you ready now to kind of look at more short-term return and give up a prospect? And he was gave us some sort of, what he has to do, right? Talking out of both sides.
He's been doing this for a while.
A little bit. But he did say that they're ready to win now. I mean, but who's untouchable? Obviously, the top 3 pitchers are untouchable. I think Bednar's untouchable. I think Colin Holderman's kind of working himself into an untouchable position.
I don't see how they could get better by trading either one of them.
Right. So, they look like they're sort of getting into a Watson Melanson sort of, type of chemistry there with that group, with the Shark Tank guys. But outside of that, who else would they who want? Are you going to trade Tamar Johnson to get somebody? I mean, are you going to go to the top of the prospect talent pool and be willing to part with that to get a guy a rental for a year or 2? I don't know. I mean, and to our point we were talking about before, because they're not hitting, right? Who's going to want their hitters?
Yeah. I mean, that's something I actually wrote about this for today. If you look at some of their expiring contract guys, you can't move them. You can't move Aroldis Chapman, $10.5 million for a setup guy with a 4.5 ERA. You just can't do it. Do you want to move Yasmani Grandal? What are you going to get? What are you going to get from Michael A. Taylor? Any prospect in the system, I don't think I have any untouchables. As long as my untouchables are Mitch Keller, Jared Jones, Paul Skeens, the obvious ones. But any prospects beyond that, by all means. And they will need to move prospects to get major league players. They will. They have holes on this team.
Right.
So are you going to make a mega deal? Probably not. And I just wouldn't see the point in moving other guys like O'Neal Cruz. I'm obviously not giving that up. Ke'Bryan Hayes, no. Brian Reynolds, no. I don't see deals where you're going to actually make your team better. Are you going to trade Edward Olivares? What's that going to do?
He's one of your best hitters with runners on base right now.
Yeah, they're somewhat limited, as they should be, as you would hope they would be if that means they're either producing for the major league. It's a tough thing.
Well, I mean, let's remember too that the D-backs got into the playoffs last year with 84 wins and went to the World Series. So you don't need to make a deal that's going to, with the goal of trying to get this to be a 90 to 95 regular season with team. That's not possible.
Right.
I think with this group, to Jason's point, with Skeens up and Jones, assuming they stay healthy, if Mitch looks like, and he looks as good as he looked at any point last year, to be honest with you, when he was an All-Star.
On a great run.
So
for
like
the last
they
6
don't
starts,
need to get a lot better because like there's just not a okay, the Dodgers are good, the Brewers are good. The Phillies obviously are very good. And then after that, the Braves are good. So there's 4. Well, there's still 3 more spots. And there's no reason to think that they couldn't be in the mix into late summer with what they have now. So I don't even know, and I think, I tried to ask, Ben this yesterday too, because hitting's offense is down across the league. That means the cost of acquiring it is just going to go up, right? And I just don't think that they have the pockets. I don't know. I think he's so committed to sort of trying to protect the long term. Like he wants to turn us into Tampa, right? Where you just sort of, you replace. And the way you do that is not by trading for guys. It's by cultivating your guys and bringing them up. So it's hard for me to imagine that as much as we can say, hey, you got to, they might be in win now mode, but it would be very stunning for me if he would make a short-term move.
Well, the one thing about the prospect of us talking about this team potentially having that opportunity to contend in the postseason is because it takes that discussion all the way in towards Steelers training camp. We're about 6.5 weeks away. Now, minicamp is on the way. OTA's just wrapped up. They had a familiar face come back in the room. We'll talk about Cam Sutton when we come back and the impact on the defense, plus a Cam Hayward extension. What might it look like? We'll discuss it when we come back. Welcome back. Time to shift to talk about the Steelers. OTAs is wrapped up. They're going in the mini camp, and then we're about 6.5 weeks away from training camp. But the Steelers brought in Cam Sutton at the league minimum, given all the situation that happened off the field. Doesn't want to talk about what happened, but he wants to look toward the future. Steelers trying to do the same thing as well. But Cam Hayward, he's also trying to look towards the future as far as the contract extension. Jason, Mackey, Will Graves. Here's the question that we have with Cam Sutton. First of all, what did you think about this move for the Steelers? Did it make sense for you? And do you feel more confident about the defense having maybe another veteran quarter showing up that spot, Will?
Can we talk about the elephant in the room, though? This guy was charged with a felony a couple months ago.
There's that, too.
A felony. And look, I understand that there's some off-field stuff that we're not privy to, okay? And I understand that it was adjudicated. I understand that he, got into the diversion program, which is it's something they offer to not just football players. They offer it to a lot of people that run into trouble. So I'm not going to kill the guy. And he's coming back to a place that, he is very familiar with. And look, he was a good dude when he was here the first time. He was a good soldier, made some money. Turned himself into one of the better nickelbacks in the league. But man, from a football move, makes perfect sense. Even at the minimum, even if he gets suspended for 4 to 6 games, which is a possibility. It's certainly on the table. But for the league minimum, yes. A football move, yes. But man, it's awful. It's awful soon after whatever happened. So for me, that still gives me a little pause.
I went through this with the Domingo Germán stuff and the mental gymnastics involved. I'm very much in the camp of second chances. I'm very much in the camp of people make mistakes, they should not be banished for life, etc. It seems like he made a mistake. If we're looking at a very big mistake, I would say. I'm not normalizing that in any way. Goes from a felony to misdemeanor battery charge to the pretrial diversion program. And in the process of that, his lawyer said the misdemeanor battery is the appropriate charge. So at that point, even if you take the lawyer at his word, you're admitting that a misdemeanor battery charge was the appropriate thing. He did something. Then at that, you wouldn't commit to going through a pretrial diversion program if you didn't do anything. You would fight the charge, correct? We can all agree on that. So operating on that sense of logic, we're then moving to the next thing. Is he changed? Do we know that happened on March 7th? An event that is acknowledged happened on March 7th. And they met with him around the NFL draft. Okay, you're going to gain intel. Do we really have enough runway to see this guy has made meaningful changes in his life? I don't know. And I wrote this in a column, and this is how I come down on it. Let's hope they're right. Let's hope this is all, because there are 3 kids involved at home that this affects. The same with Domingo Germán. That's not funny. That's not about football. That's about a person where I really hope you have your you-know-what together, and that there's a lot of stuff that has been conflated, or that you've changed, or something is in place so this does not happen again. But yeah, it worries me.
I think in his first turn here, he was able to sort of compartmentalize whatever was happening at home with his job, right? He was a very good football player. I think the Mike Tomlin, it's not like he signed with Team X. I mean, this is a team that knows him. I firmly believe that Mike T, put
and hopefully there's a support system
and put his name out there for them. Put his name on the line to protect him. And he doesn't look. This isn't like anything that might have happened with Debo in the past or some other guys that have run into trouble. This is a guy that
a few names you could use. Right.
I mean, so to be very clear here, from a football standpoint and in the room standpoint, he has been nothing but a solid citizen. It's just when there's a court order and one of the things stipulates that you can't have a firearm for a month. Like, that seems oddly specific, right? And so you just sort of hope that whatever is going on in his personal life, that is on a road to a good place, and then that maybe the football stuff kind of accelerates that process because he's happy at work.
And we'll see how that all transcends as we go into training camp and the regular season. And like you said, a suspension could also very well be on the table. But before we wrap up here, we got to take another break. When we come back, Cam Hayward wants an extension. What does that look like that makes sense to both Jason and Will? We'll talk about it when we come back. Stick around. When the number one is in your name, you always have to bring your A game. That's exactly what Number One Cochran does every day with 2 convenient locations in Monroeville and Butler County, more than 200 new models in stock and all-star offers for every budget and lifestyle. Drive home a winner when you visit Number One Cochran Subaru and shop online at CochranSubaru.com and CochranSubaruButler.com. We'll be right back. With everything we talked about this week, we are out of time. I want to thank our guests again today, Jason Mackey from the Post-Gazette, Will Graves from the Associated Press, and thank you everybody for watching. We're here for you every Sunday night on the Number One Cochran Sports Showdown. Thank you again for watching. I'm Josh Taylor in for Bob Pompiani. Hope you enjoy the rest of your week. And also, see you right back around here this time next week on the Number One Cochran Sports Showdown.
Shout out Wanda King, Queen of Monroeville. Let's go.